Welcome to the Jericho Force podcast, where we learn how to integrate faith into the work that we do. Don't conform to the world's way of doing business. Transform by doing business God's way. Here's our host, my husband, author, speaker, teacher, encourager, and stewardship coach, Jason Davis.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Jericho Force podcast, where we integrate faith into the work that we do. My name is Jason Davis, aka Mr. Fortify, and it's an honor to be here and serve you again. Happy New Year. This is the second show of the year, and this is a very, very special show. Before I get to that and tell you why, shout out to my boy John J. Sims for the new Jericho Force podcast theme, Sunday Church. You definitely want to check him out. Go back and listen to the last episode, episode 24. We actually debuted the song so you could hear it in full. So shout out to John. Tonight is a very special episode because this is a milestone. This is the 25th episode. So thank you, all you listeners, all you kingdom business owners, you Christian entrepreneurs. Thank you for supporting the Jericho Force podcast. Make sure if this is blessing you, whatever platform of choice you are listening on, make sure to give a positive review so that we can be found on all channels via the algorithm. Tonight, we have a very special guest. She is a friend of mine, but before I bring her on, let me introduce you to her. Lindsay Walker, a product of faith, ambition, and strength, is the founder of Walker & Associates Media Group. Her love for connecting brands with consumers and the media alike led to a career in public relations, working with brands such as 135th Street Agency, BET, Interscope Records, Kurlee Belle, Evolving Beauty, K-Camp, FX Networks, to name a few, and securing press in today's top-tier publications, TV networks, and more. Lindsay has established herself as an expert in the world of PR, branding, and entrepreneurship. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Jericho Force podcast, Lindsay Walker. Lindsay, how are you doing tonight?
Good evening. I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm excited.
I'm excited too.
Man, and Lindsay, I think it's so cool that you get to have this milestone episode of being the 25th. So I find it very special that you're the one to do it as we've gotten to know each other over the years, but excited to have you on for what I know is going to be a powerful conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, and congratulations. I'm super proud of you.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate that. Well, Lindsay, as people are listening to what's in your bio, they go, my God, this girl has done a lot. She has been in front of some big brands and done some great things. How did you get to where you're at today, Lindsay, with your professional experience? We know what's in the bio, but what was the journey to get to where you are today?
Oh my gosh, it was such an amazing, just interesting journey. And even as you were reading the bio, I was reflecting like, oh my gosh, like that actually is me. That's like my life. And so like growing up, I was always like reading a book. I was always like when I would go to the store with my grandmother, they knew where to find me. I was in the books aisle. I was reading the latest magazines. And I always have had a passion for writing. I love to write. I love to read. And so growing up, I actually thought that I would be a journalist. I thought that, I was going to be a writer and write for magazines. Well, I ended up being on the other side where I actually get to work with the magazines to help them source the stories that they print or that they, feature online. And that came about actually from a fiction book that I read when I was in high school. One of the characters was like an account executive at a public relations firm. And I thought, like, wow, that sounds really cool. And so I had the opportunity to participate in the Minority Journalism Workshop here in St. Louis, Missouri, and I had the opportunity to choose whether I wanted to work as a journalist or whether I wanted to learn what it was like to be a publicist. I chose the PR route, and I fell in love with it, and that's kind of how I got started.
Wow. That's awesome. Lindsay, as you were talking, I caught a couple of things. Number one, for you listeners out there, reading is fundamental.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, with where Lindsay's from. So how do they say it, Lindsay? You're from the show me state, right?
Yes, I am from the show me state.
I love it. Well, Lindsay, with your interests even going all the way back from childhood and then bringing all the way present day where you're at now, I don't know any Kingdom business owner that hasn't gotten to where they are today without their personal testimony. And I know, folks, I've heard Lindsay talk about it in other capacities and in other audiences, but just for people out in the marketplace, Lindsay, talk about the impact that your personal testimony has had on you as you do business.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, and Jason, you may not even know this because I don't even think that I've shared it on the other platforms that we're connected on, but I actually was born extremely, extremely premature. My mom had me when she was about 5 months pregnant, and so I was born at like 23 weeks. I was 1 pound, 2.5 ounces. And so, that was already just an obstacle that I had to overcome, growing up, being monitored, then making sure that all was well with me. And then, in 2018 to have to undergo 6 months of chemotherapy and get told that, I was diagnosed with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma, that definitely had a huge impact on my career. It had a huge impact on my life, and it definitely changed the trajectory of how I choose to run business. It was during that time that I truly saw the hand of God on my life and in my business as a healer. I saw God just make space for me and keeping me because I was still working while I was going through chemotherapy. I still had clients. That was where I learned, fortunately or unfortunately, the importance of delegating, the importance of having a team. And so definitely going through that journey and going through that process taught me so much as a Kingdom business owner and entrepreneur. It taught me that we have the capabilities through our faith in God and through our relationship with Him to overcome any storm, to overcome anything, that is brought to us. We can overcome any circumstance through the power of Jesus Christ, right? And just by walking with God and trusting Him no matter the situation.
Wow. Lindsay, every time you talk about that, I know I'm always inspired. And no, I did not know about you being born premature, so I appreciate your transparency and your vulnerability. As you were talking, Lindsay, there are just, folks, if you're listening, some words that come to mind as Lindsay was talking: fighter, overcomer, perseverance, perspective. Certainly, Lindsay, when God heals you from what you've been healed from, you gain a lot of perspective. I know that there were days that were light and days where things were dark, and I know that you can walk feeling more blessed today, knowing the perspective that you got from coming through that. Also, knowing that God is our healer, Jehovah Rapha, He's our healer personally. He cares about our physical health, spiritual, mental, emotional. He's our Heavenly Father. And then on the business side, Lindsay, you touched on, there are things that are going to happen in life. Jesus talked about it in Scripture. In this life, we will have trials, but we don't have to worry because he's already overcome the world. So you talked about the importance of delegation and having a strong team. And I think that's so huge, Lindsay, especially for kingdom business owners, because we're influenced, we're in a culture, even business wise, where you're being told, hey, you've got to do it. You've got to be the superstar. You can do everything all by yourself. You don't need anybody. And for the time and season that you were in your life, you absolutely needed that. And so for you to humble yourself and take heed to do the needful, that speaks volumes. So delegation and then teamwork, having people on your team that are ideal team players, that's huge, Lindsay. You got me excited. You were starting to preach a little bit. I was like, okay, Lindsay, okay. But just any comments on that, Lindsay, when you're dealing with something like what you dealt with, just take us a little bit behind the scenes. I mean, we know, and I know you speak honestly, but, for those out there, they're like, Lindsay, okay, delegation, okay, teamwork. Like, talk about what that really took to do that. Because, Lindsay, I feel like people, they know they should delegate, but there's still this struggle to do so. They know they should have a good team around them, but there might be, for whatever reason, a lack of trust, or I'm the only person who can do this. So just talk about that.
Yeah, I would say like one of the very first things that I had to overcome is that mindset, right? Because we think that we can do it all. We, may have been running our businesses for 6 or 7 years, and we're like, we don't need anybody, and I'm trying to save in cost, and I'm trying to save overhead and all these things, when the reality of it is, by staying in that mindset, you're hurting yourself because you're running yourself all the way ragged because you're trying to do all of the things that you weren't necessarily called to do within your business. And then you're wondering why, you may be facing stress or burnout, frustrations. And so getting over that mindset was like the very first thing. And honestly, Jason, at the time, I didn't even have a choice to get out of that mindset anymore because I physically sometimes could not do my job, right? And so it was like I had to get people in order to keep the contracts that I had. I had to, learn really, really quickly how to delegate. Even now, like we're still in the process of putting together, our operating procedures and figuring out what we want the back end to truly look like, because as you grow, your business is going to grow. And as your business grows, the process always needs to be tweaked and changed. But a lot of people, and this is where I was, I'm speaking like 100% from experience, a lot of people are stuck at a certain income level. A lot of people are stuck at not experiencing the fullness of God, the fullness that He has for all of us because of that mindset. We think we don't need people. We think we can do everything on our own. We're, still dealing with a lack mentality, not knowing that if we would just let go and allow God to orchestrate our business and allow Him to be the organizer and the human resources person and put the pieces of the puzzle together, there's so much more on the other side. But first, it takes looking at yourself in the mirror, like doing some hard reflection work and saying, okay, this is an area where I need help in, whether that be in your business or whether it's in your home life to help you run your business smoother.
Wow. My goodness, folks, Lindsay is dropping some gems tonight, so you want to make sure you're listening live, take notes, and then for those of you who will listen on demand, you're getting a wealth of knowledge here. Lindsay, I know you know this without a shadow of a doubt, but in 2022, is God still a healer?
Yes, God is definitely a healer.
And where I'm going with this, Lindsay, is a lot of what you went through, you captured. You actually wrote your story. So I believe it was 2020. You came out
Yes.
with Thriving Through the Storm. And so talk about the process of getting all of that out in a book, because as you know, Lindsay, when you're writing what God has called you to write, there's a whole other set of things that
Yes.
you bump up against. But with how emotional your journey was, just talk to us about the process of writing that, and then we'll get into, some of the takeaways that you'd like readers to get from it.
Yes, so I could not tell this version of the story without acknowledging my dear friend Chanel E. Martin, who is also the founder of Beyond the Book Media. And at the time, she was starting out, and she was so instrumental in walking me through my healing process. She said to me one day, like, I feel like you should write a book. Like, you should write a book about your journey. And I'm thinking, like, no, I don't want to write a book. Like, who wants to hear my story? Who
Mm.
wants to read about somebody that went through a cancer diagnosis? Like, I didn't want to write it, honestly, Jason. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Maybe I should write it. Like, I can just write it for myself and like not publish it, and that's it, right? So at the time, she had this. I think it was like a 21-day writing challenge, and
Mm-hmm.
I got into the challenge, and so I carved out time every day for 21 days to write my book, and God truly just showed himself to be God. So much healing came from me writing the book. I can remember just writing chapter after chapter with like tears in my eyes, and sometimes I would have to stop because it would be painful, but the revelation that I was getting, I knew was from God. And, it was just a beautiful experience. Of what I now can recognize as like redemption and restoration, even before all of that truly took place. And so that's pretty much how the book came about, and what the journey looked like. Obviously, I decided to publish, and here we are.
Yes, we are. My goodness, folks. You want to make sure you grab a copy. Lindsay, where can people grab a copy of Thriving Through the Storm?
Yes, so Thriving Through the Storm is available on Amazon.com. You can just search for it, Thriving Through the Storm, Lindsay Walker. It'll pop right up and you can grab your copies.
Excellent. We'll make sure we have that in the show notes as well, folks. So you make sure you grab your copy and support what Lindsay's doing. Man, Lindsay, you talked about the process of writing, and I feel like at times, Lindsay, especially as business owners or those who even work in corporate to a certain extent, we don't always like to talk about what we've been through, and we try to kind of hide behind the job per se, or hide behind the activity. Did you find yourself doing that? And if you didn't, what advice maybe would you give to folks who their heads down, but something's wrong physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally? What is the importance of stopping to pause and sit with God and actually go through the healing process?
Oh my gosh, it's so, so very important. Like, if you don't get healed, you run the risk of 9 times out of 10 bleeding on other people.
Mm.
And I can remember one day I was out and everybody around me was having such a great time. And I just looked around and I just started crying, like right in the middle of the lounge of the space. And that was when I knew, like, you can't keep this in, you can't hold on to it. So it required a lot of prayer. And at the same time, Jason, it also required and urged me to go and seek a therapist,
Mm.
because I knew that I didn't have the language to unpack the grief that I felt, to unpack some of the other emotional things, the survivor's guilt, and all these things that were in the way at that time. So prayer definitely. I mean, like, I prayed and had people praying for me throughout. And also, I'm an advocate for therapy just so that I can make sure that I am grounded, and I'm blessed enough because my therapist is also a pastor. And so being able to get both sides of the coin from a supernatural and kingdom perspective, and then a mental and overall emotional health perspective has really, truly helped to keep me where I'm able to be used as God's vessel without allowing the situation, the flow of life to taint where He would have me to go and how He would have me to be used.
My goodness. Lindsay, you said a few things there. If we don't take time out to heal, we're not showing up to be the best version of ourselves that we've been called to. Because, Lindsay, we have people who've been assigned to our voice. Certainly with you in PR, you working with all the brands and becoming more and more public across the industry. There are people that that are assigned to you and assigned to your voice. So when we actually don't take the time out to do that, we're not stewarding and managing well that which God gave us, and that's kind of a harsh pill to swallow sometimes, especially when it comes to our emotions and our mental health. Lindsay, in your opinion, we kind of have there's kind of two strikes against mental health. Number one is you and I being Black people. Number one, a lot of Black people don't. We're kind of taught to gut it out and kind of go through things, and everything's going to be all right, and we're just kind of used to pushing on and pushing through. Secondly, in the Christian space, because of things like having faith in God and trusting in God. So when I say kind of two dings, that's what I mean. Can you just give your opinion on why do you think therapy is maybe not considered as much of an option, A, for the church, and then B, even as Black people?
Yeah, so I'll start with the second one first. I think that culturally, the Black community has faced so much trauma, and so many situations have taken place where we don't really, as a people, know if we can trust other people with our stuff. We don't know if we can trust other people with our baggage. And so I believe that that's why a lot of people do not seek therapy. They don't seek help because there is a level of mistrust in the Black community as it relates to mental health. We're taught to sweep things under the rug. We're taught that what goes on in my house stays in my house, those things. And I think that that's definitely a cause for why people are hesitant to advocate for their mental health by way of therapy. And then when you bring church into it, I think that there's this misconception that when you have a therapist, you're not fully trusting in God. You're trusting in that therapist. And I think that we sometimes as believers forget that God created people. God created human beings to be resources to one another, to be, helpmates to one another, to do life and have community. And sometimes we can be so caught up into, church culture, and if you're not, praying and fasting, and those things are necessary too, but we have to remember that, God created our mind. And if there are people who have made it their life's work to study the mind and psychology and all of these other things, why not, seek them out for the expertise? So I think those are like some major keys as to why we don't advocate as much as we should.
Yeah, that's well said, Lindsay. I appreciate you saying that. My goodness. Folks, I'm telling you, if you're listening tonight or go back and listen on demand, gonna want to take notes. Lindsay has elevated to Pastor Lindsay tonight. she is she is preaching. I'm joking with her, but I know she can go. She knows I know that she can get there. So she is definitely sharing some gold tonight. So Lindsay, as we shift gears a little bit, we talked about the importance of what's going on inside, and then certainly with your testimony of how God healed you. So, God has brought you all the way to January 2022, and you are the founder of Walker and Associates Media Group. So, Lindsay, talk to us about just how God gave you the dream to start your own firm, and then just tell us a little bit. There's some misconceptions about what PR even is, right? So tell
Yeah.
us how you started the business, and then just talk about, why is it, what's the stigma around PR where people think they know what it is, and then they really don't, or because they don't know what it is, they just say, why bother?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. You know what? I did not know that I was going to start my own firm, believe it or not. I thought that I would go and work for a firm, and then I thought, okay, after 5, 10 years of working for someone else, I'll start my own thing. So, but it was kind of in the back of my head, definitely not in the forefront. And so I graduated, and, Jason, there are so many times that you and I have had such great conversation, and we agree on most things, but I know when I say this, we're not going to agree, and that's okay. I attended the best HBCU ever. I did. I attended the Jackson State University. I graduated top of my class. When I came home, it was very hard for me to find a job. I applied for over 100 jobs in different fields and, positions within marketing and communications. And after about 3 months, I just kind of got frustrated. And I'm like, you know what? I can start my own thing. I was just like, I'm going to start my own company, and I felt solid in that. And now I know, that was really God, like, hey, you're supposed to start your own thing. And so I started to just share my portfolio on Twitter and on LinkedIn. I landed a couple of clients from there. I was so excited, had no idea what I was doing, don't even know to this day what made these people trust me, out the gate. Again, that was just God. But that's pretty much how I got started. Now, of course, the disclaimer is that I did actually know what I was doing. I did a ton of internships. I was a marketing intern with AT&T. I did over 6 internships in the publicity arena. So I knew public relations inside and out, right? But when I say I didn't know what I was doing, there's a difference between working in a field and running a business within that field. And so I had to learn all of the ins and outs of that while still doing my day-to-day. But it has been such an amazingly just beautiful journey. I have been sitting back thinking about it more and more, and I'm just so grateful, and I'm so blessed because God has taken me and is taking me to places that I could have never imagined, and none of this was even a thought for me. And so that's just the power, the goodness, and the glory of God. I'm so thankful to be in an industry that allows people to find and enhance and be empowered by their own story. You talk about people having misconceptions. One of those is that, it's like advertising, and it's not. I always tell people that advertising is what you say about you. It's what you say about your business. Public relations is what other people have to say about your brand, your products, and your services.
That's good right there. I guess we're going to MBA class now. Let's go on and get the master's then. Folks, that's key, the difference between advertising and PR. That is huge. So, Lindsay, as a business owner, and I believe just like you do that, people have a brand as well. I'll never forget, Lindsay, when we were at KBN Activate and last year,
Hmm.
and one of the speakers said you can either be labeled or you can brand yourself, and I never forgot that. So just
That's good.
give some color on that, how you can be bumping along and even be really good at what you do, but are you going to sit back and allow the market to just say what you are? Are you going to step into your calling, into your brand, and say, no, this is who I am, this is my part and of the market, this is my niche, and this is the messaging and the story that I'm going to say? Just talk about that quote quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's so, so powerful. Um, Public relations is the vehicle that allows you to brand yourself because people are going to label you no matter what. They're going to form their own opinion. They're going to form their own opinion based on either their experience with you or what they think their experience should be with you. And what better way for you to consistently control that narrative through public relations, through sharing your expertise, through being a true authority in your industry and in the marketplace than being featured in outlets that allow you to share the narrative, to share the do's and don'ts, to share this is how you do XYZ on platforms and magazines and publications that share a similar audience as the audience that you're always looking to get in front of by consistently, marketing yourself. And so, that definitely speaks volumes and is so, so true when it comes to getting publicity because if you are not being proactive in telling your story, people will write your story for you.
Hmm. My goodness. That was the heart punch right there. I told you all she can go when she goes. I'm telling you.
Glory to God.
My goodness. Amen to that, Lindsay. So, Lindsay, if you were to take on people listening out there and they go, man, I really like what Lindsay is saying. I like um, what her organization is about. When you take on clients, Lindsay, what is your philosophy and strategy for approaching uh, public relations? Because as Kingdom business owners, you're looking at an integrated experience. Like you just said, listen, God is with us. He's very much a part of what's going on in the marketplace. So just talk about how you integrate faith into your day to day. And if clients come on with you, what's your kind of your strategy and your thought process for um, from a PR perspective?
Yeah, so for us, we work with clients that we really feel that are an extension of our own brand. So it has to
Mm,
be something that I feel as though I have the capacity to take on the project and see the vision. That's most important to us. And then from there, definitely praying on on our client's behalf, praying, on the campaign and the deliverables, seeking God for the strategy and okay, like why isn't this working? What's going on? What should we do? Are definitely things that over the years and even now I'm learning to integrate into the scope of work that we do, realizing that it's not just about getting the results, but it's about getting the results that are going to help point people to Christ, whether they're a believer or not. And so it starts with, us having a passion, me feeling really called to take the project on. And then from there, being able to, avail myself fully and my team fully to whatever campaign or strategy we develop. A lot of times clients come to us when they're looking to get awareness and create visibility around their brands.
mm. That's good, folks. I would definitely give Lindsay a call after this. I don't know about you. I would certainly do that if you're reading the tea leaves of this conversation. So, Lindsay, you've been in front of some huge brands, BET, 135th Street Agency, Interscope Records, and to somebody who is saying, okay, Lindsay, I understand the importance of PR. I don't even know how to get started. And it's so intimidating when you think about big brands like that. So maybe if somebody doesn't have, from a budget standpoint or financial perspective, what are some things people can do from a grassroots level? Maybe elaborate on that, and then we'll get to like some of the more intricate things. But just starting out, maybe, okay, Lindsay, you've convinced me PR is important. I'm aligned in my business and my strategy. I've looked at my vision. How do I even go about getting started to even reach out to some of these brands?
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, you have to be able to identify your why. And this is something that I tell all clients. I talk about it all the time. I teach it inside of our program. You have to be able to identify why you are in the marketplace. And that's not just like, okay, I'm good at doing hair or I'm good at teaching, so I started a tutoring service. No, like what was that deep-rooted thing that caused you to say, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to teach these people. I'm going to show up. I'm going to sell this house, right? Identifying your why is key because that's going to need to be conveyed to the media in a compelling way, which we note as the brand story, to get the press to say yes. So you want to start by identifying your why. Then you want to start to do your research on who is in your industry, who's your competition, where they've been featured. Because if you look at where they've been featured, the outlets are going to tell you based on those features and, you just doing your homework, what they cover about your industry, where you would fit in your industry. You're going to be able to see that from the articles that you read. And then you have to get clear on your messaging. So I would definitely say to start with those three things.
Outstanding. Outstanding. I love that, Lindsay, how to get started, get clear on your messaging, understand your why. And folks, if you're listening as a business owner and you hear that all the time, okay, I know my why, I know my why, I know my why. I'm telling you, when you understand your why, other things fall into alignment. It's just so amazing how people and the market resonate with those who just know their why so matter-of-factly. It just never ceases to amaze me, Lindsay. It doesn't matter what aspect of business, everybody comes back to, hey, you got to know that why.
Absolutely, like 100%, you have to.
Now, Lindsay, I know we just started a new year, 2022. People are making New Year's resolutions, they're doing their vision boards, or some people might have done it last year and they're just starting to turn the dial on execution. And as they're looking to incorporate PR, in your opinion, Lindsay, where does the state, if you gave like your own State of the Union, kind of like what the president does, where do you think PR is currently, and where do you see it going in 2022?
That is a great question. I think that now more than ever, people are really understanding why they need publicity. They're understanding why they need to consistently market. They're understanding why it's important for them to consistently be featured in the media. Because thinking about it, we all make informed, or we try our best to make informed decisions based on what we watch, what we read, what we come across, what we listen to. And so I think that PR is headed in such a phenomenal space because people are more educated and they're more aware of why they need visibility. Now, in 2022, I definitely believe that we'll start to see so many things. Like you'll start to see small business owners integrating publicity into their campaigns along with advertising. We'll start to see them utilizing videos and showing up on platforms like this, on various podcasts, for them to share their messages with the world, especially, in light of everything that's going on with, the pandemic and coronavirus and people still being in quarantine in some spaces. So I think that in 2022, we're going to see people gear up more creatively from a visual and digital perspective, and they're going to be more compelled to share their messaging on various platforms.
There you have it, folks. That's a 2022 outlook from Lindsey Walker. How about that? Well, Lindsay, as we get ready to close down the interview here, and I just want to thank you so much for all of the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that you've brought to the platform tonight. I feel like this is really going to bless a lot of Kingdom business owners. You know, Lindsay, any upcoming events or things that's on the plate for Walker and Associates? What's maybe some things coming up in the next quarter in Q1 2022 that you'd like for folks to know about?
Yeah, right now we are in the process of doing a rebrand. So you'll see a totally new website, totally different and fresh content from us. I am really right now enjoying Instagram Reels. So you'll see a ton of those things come up. We also have client events. I actually have an event this weekend in Atlanta with one of my clients, and then I'll be back to Atlanta next month for another client. So we're doing a ton of activations, conferences, summits, things of that nature. So I'm really, really excited for what's in store for Q1.
That's awesome. Well, Lindsay, I know you're a mover and a shaker. How can people connect with you and reach out to you, whether it's for business or just to follow your journey as God continues to be with you, taking territory in the marketplace? What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yes, Jason, the best way, and I'm so happy to say this, the best way to connect with me is on my Instagram page. And you know kind of the story behind me getting hacked, but glory to God, I got my page back. So please go and follow me on Instagram. I am at Lindsay, that's LINDSEYA Walker. Connect with me there. Send me a voice note. I will send you one back. I'll follow back. We'll chat. And you can also get connected with me through joining my Facebook group. And the link to that is also in my Instagram bio.
Yes, indeed, folks. Make sure you follow Lindsay. I've been following Lindsay for some time, and I enjoy her content. I enjoy her wisdom. And I'm telling you, folks, she is doing some powerful things, her and her firm, in the marketplace. Well, Lindsay, once again, I just want to say thank you. You have made this milestone episode one to remember. This is episode 25, and I'm so happy to have spent it with you.
Absolutely, likewise. And again, congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much. Well, folks, that wraps up this episode of the Jericho Force podcast. Make sure that you follow and connect with Lindsay Walker. She is going to be just somebody you want to keep up with, and I promise you that you can't go wrong when it comes to PR. So thank you so much, Lindsay, for joining today. Folks, as we end this episode, remember what we always say on the Jericho Force podcast. We integrate faith into the work that we do, and we live out our faith in the marketplace. So don't conform to the world's way of doing business. Transform by doing business God's way. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Jericho Force podcast. You can catch us live on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time and on demand. Check out jerichoforce.com/podcast for more details. To learn how to live out your faith in the marketplace, grab a copy of Jason Davis's book, Fortify, Being Rooted in God's Plan for Work and Business, available on Amazon.